It was a stroll through almost a century of models and makes. Ballina residents may have caught a glimpse of a 1928 Austin 7 on a rare trip into Lismore today. More than 70 sports and vintage cars stood side by side at Heritage Park. Two of the most valuable cars on show were an Italian Maserati Indy and a Jaguar Mark II. Birthday celebrations were held on the foreshore. The jetty was built in 3 stages between 1889 and 1953. It's the largest coastal timber jetty in New South Wales and was an integral part of North Coast shipping for nearly a century. It remains the dominant landmark in the harbour. As well as dancing, the celebrations included various displays such as a show of old-style axemanship.
The Wallsend Fair is designed to get the community together for a bit of fun. One looked down Nelson Street today and it was obvious by the head count that this yearly event was doing more than fair business. Every man and his dog was there.
This is the biggest fair we've had in the 6 years that we've been having it.
There was a mix of Akubras and rural charm, and medieval market-style sales pitches. All of it intended to put a smile and some paint on people's faces. While some trumpeted out their contribution to the fair, the Wallsend Apex Club opted for a quieter presentation to the Birmingham Gardens ambulance officers of 3 glucometers. They look like a video game, but these machines' purpose is anything but play, measuring the blood glucose levels of unconscious people.
Around half of those that we find that are unconscious are probably related to diabetes.
Scott Bevan, NBN News.
It's been a long time between drinks, and the state's coaches are working hard in an effort to lift our flagging tennis image. Meeting at Salamander Bay for the past 2 days, new techniques, equipment, health and junior development were but a few of the subjects discussed. One of Australia's all-time greats, Tony Roach, told the seminar there was one basic fundamental missing.
You've got to enjoy it. I mean, that's why you play, because you love the game, not because you want to make all the money or to become #1 in the world. Your first priority is that you love the sport, and I think you're right. The top players, to me, are not enjoying themselves.
Roach went on to point out that our playing surface here in the land of Oz is wrong for our would-be champions. Europe is mostly clay, with even that quickening up. Wimbledon is grass, the US Open is hard court, and the National Championships is rebound ace. But the majority of our kids are coached on synthetic grass, and there is not one major championship worldwide that uses this surface. But the strongest tip for our coaches was to pick up the pace of the game.
The game has really changed so quickly. When I first started with Lendl back in '85, it really was, playing well behind the baseline with the big looping balls, and that was the style of play that dominated the game. Not so anymore. I mean, the game has changed so quickly that either the big serve and volleys, or if you're going to play from the back of the court, you've got to take the ball early and you've got to hit it hard.
Last night, Newcastle knight Mark Sargent was competing on Sail of the Century for the Battle of the Codes. Today he was paddling up Newcastle Harbour with champion surfer Mark Richards. And while Mark is the reputed paddler, it was Sarge who was doing all the work. It was all rather silly, but then so is wearing a red nose. And on August the 28th, most of the state will be doing just that for a very serious reason. Last year, $170,000 was raised in the Hunter through the sale of red noses and badges. This year, it's hoped to reach the $200,000 mark. The money goes into the research of sudden infant death syndrome. So far this year, 15 infants in the Hunter have died from cot death. The cause remains a mystery. Red Nose Day also helps to break down the barriers by heightening awareness of a tragedy which can strike any family at any time.
It is now my great pleasure to officially launch Red Nose Appeal in the Hunter, and I urge everyone to go out and buy as many red noses as they can for the car, for the house, for yourself. Do the whole drive up in them.
Spink's now 25. He's been playing in the top league since he was 18. His ability to put the ball in the back of the net speaks for itself. His former club Preston were NSL cellar dwellers. Spink says the choice to change was obvious.
When you look at the facilities and the team and the club, then I don't think it wasn't a hard decision, put it that way.
But what about expectations? Coach Bruce Stowell isn't mincing words.
They're going to be quite severe here for him to score goals, not only by me but by the public. But at the same time, he's got better quality players around him, and I think he's going to have far more opportunity to be scoring goals than he has elsewhere.
Hopefully I can score a few goals, which I'm fairly confident of doing. And the bottom line is the team has a very good season, which I'm sure we will.
Joining Spink at Newcastle this year, another Socceroo, Darren Stewart. After 6 years with RPL Leichhardt, Stewart's ready to come home. He'll add,
but hopefully a bit of experience, because I have been around now for a fair while.
Both players leave Australia on Thursday, joining the Socceroos for a 3-match series in Indonesia.
Sharing a small 2-bedroom Mayfield home with their Romanian friend Annika Opera, their daughter and a friend Sophie Pop. With no money.
The end of the rainbow fell in Newcastle this afternoon, and the pot of gold for those hoping for an early start to the honeysuckle project was found in Premier John Fay's words.
We will be recommending to the Commonwealth Government that it be included in the Better Cities program.
That means the redevelopment project is back online for $71 million of federal money, which seemed to be all but lost 3 weeks ago. The state government had withdrawn its support for honeysuckle because of what it called the petty political games of Newcastle's ALP members over opposing ending the rail line at the Civic. But then Newcastle Council and local MPs signed this letter unconditionally accepting the state's plan to cut the line.
I'm pleased to say that the politics which have somewhat kept this particular project down appear to have gone, and I would hope from this point on that the political processes do not return.
But the politics haven't gone. Newcastle's federal MP Alan Morris referred to the Premier's visit as an ambush, while one Save Our Rail campaigner did some ambushing of her own. But Lord Mayor John McNaughton was beaming at the announcement.
$71 million plus $30 million plus 18,000 jobs. Why would not a Lord Mayor be very pleased?
$30 million will be the state government's input over the next 4 years. As the delegation toured the site, Planning Minister Robert Webster explained how that money would be spent.
We're talking about a transport study, we're talking about some housing, we're talking about improvements to the port and various other measures which make up our $30 million commitment.
Mr Fay is confident a Better Cities agreement will be signed with the federal government within a month and work on honeysuckle will begin this financial year. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
The centre in Crescent Street was developed as a resource to complement the services of the city's women's refuge.
So it's much better for women to get that ongoing support once they've had a traumatic situation like that outside the refuge rather than in the refuge itself once they've been through the crisis situation.
The centre is open to women of all ages and provides access to a range of information from health and childcare to discrimination and services for the unemployed, as Coordinator Vonnie Russell explains.
A huge lot of resources. It offers courses for women, 2 courses that we run not concurrently, one after the other, one in self-esteem and confidence building. It provides a place for women to come to look at all the other services that are available in Armidale for women and in other centres as well.
The building is split into sections with a separate entry made available to those seeking advice or help regarding child sexual assault.
Police say the trio was travelling along the Grafton Road, 14 kilometres east of Armidale, when their four-wheel drive failed to negotiate a bend. Investigators believe the boys lost control of the Tas School Land Rover, rolling it onto its side. A semi-trailer travelling behind the students radioed police and ambulance services for help. Traffic was diverted around the scene while emergency services freed the victims. All 3 were taken to hospital. One student remains in intensive care, suffering severe concussion. The other 2 are reported to be in a stable condition, suffering fractures and lacerations. Police inquiries into the incident are continuing.
Current Auski champion Bruce Neville has smashed the world jumps record at Michigan in the United States. Neville, one of only a handful of water ski experts that's jumped in excess of 200 feet, flew through the air in a massive jump of 208 feet, bettering the old mark by 5 feet. Neville has dominated Auski at Raymond Terrace for the past 3 years and is a hot favourite for next year's title. And in the final race of the duathlon series, competitors faced a 4-kilometre run, followed by a 17-kilometre bike ride and another 4K run. It was Sydney's Chris McCormick who dominated the event, and he ran and rode brilliantly to shade his opponents in a time of 51.5 minutes. But by finishing second, Simon Manson of Wollongong wrapped up the series. Jodie Bowles of Sydney was by far the outstanding female, winning today's event as well as the overall.
EnvironFest, the brainchild of Lake Macquarie Council, was held for the first time last year. Its aim is to promote a sustainable environment by increasing the community's awareness of threats to the environment and ways to protect it. The theme is reduce, reuse and recycle, and will see 50 exhibitors including National Parks and Wildlife, recycling companies and Pasminco Sulphide. As well, there'll be entertainment, guest speakers and 2,000 trees given away.
It's an invitation to persons in the community who are environmentally conscious, which I believe all of the community is, to celebrate once a year.
Mayor Carley is pleased with Pacific Power's 3-year $80,000 sponsorship and says it'll be used to help EnvironFest become a major environmental forum in New South Wales. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
Here, on 55 hectares of state rail-owned land at Glendale. For Lake Macquarie Mayor Doug Carley, making Glendale the hub of hunter sport has been a pet project. And the reason?
We cannot afford as a region to duplicate sporting facilities of this kind, major sporting facilities.
The Mayor's vision includes facilities for basketball, gymnastics, tennis, restaurants, a convention centre, all built on a scale similar to Newcastle's new entertainment centre. He says he's had support from mayors and shire presidents in the Lower Hunter, but first things first.
The important thing is that the area be saved for that purpose and zoned accordingly.
Council is now drafting concept plans. Costings will come next.
Along with the 40 people to be displaced when the regional office moves from Newcastle to Port Macquarie, another 27 positions will be affected, 13 jobs to go. Minister for Land Transport Bob Brown expressed his concern over the proposal to disband the design office, claiming its closure would not be in the interest of public safety. The office, which occupies a quarter of the RTA's Derby Street building, works towards safe road design and eliminating accident black spots. Half the personnel to be shed will be absorbed into other postings. Employees are seeking the advice of the Professional Officers Union. Meanwhile, attempts at a response from the RTA have been met with a flat no comment. Andrew Lobb reporting for NBN News. The relocation of the Port Authority from the southern to the northern side of the harbour is considered an essential stage of the Honeysuckle redevelopment. After pulling the plug on a $70 million plan, the state government responded to the city's pleas for support with a promise of $30 million. About $10 million of that is earmarked for the Port Authority's move. But rather than coming from state funds, that amount has already been levied from harbour customers.
I can't speak for the allocation of Better Cities funding, but we have a program to relocate ourselves from the southern side of the harbour to the northern side, and we are a self-funding organisation. So we will progressively make that move based around our own funding capacities.
So therefore, that rough $10 million mark is actually being generated from within the Hunter itself or within the port?
Well, our program is to spend approximately $10 million over the next 4 years on that relocation exercise. As I said, we are and have been self-funding in terms of capital expenditure.
While the authority's overall revenue is down, record coal shipments and cost savings are up, leading to a positive outlook for the increasingly market-driven port. Such factors point to the likely corporatisation and privatisation of the authority. Consortiums considering the former state dockyard site for work on Navy tenders may miss the boat.
General cargo handling is what is the ultimate use of that area.
Would that leave space, in fact, for mine hunters or patrol boats or whatever comes next?
In the next 5-year time frame, there is opportunity for space to be leased there for purposes other than port operations, but in the longer term there won't be.
The agricultural campus is planned for this 60-hectare college-owned site 7 kilometres north of Moree.
It's to provide very much hands-on practical training, and you can't do that in a classroom.
The campus will feature courses in cotton, cattle and sheep management, irrigation and broadacre farming. Mr Smith believes it'll cater for more than 150 students and provide a much-needed facility, as currently the closest agricultural college is Tokal near Newcastle.
The main aim of this block is to turn out students who are suitably qualified in practical agricultural training to go into employment in the cotton and broadacre farming industries.
Mr Smith says state government supports the idea but suggests private funding will be largely needed as government monies are limited. The community is being asked to help design campus facilities. The Festival of the Black Soil Plains, as you can see, is all about art. It's the biggest festival of its kind in the state's northwest. It features the works of hundreds of artists from all over New South Wales and Queensland. This diversity, a vital ingredient, says Gallery Director Scott Brown, to the development of the discipline. Paintings aren't the only works on display. The festival also features sculpture and craft. The festival will run until August 23rd.
The order of the day for the Bulldogs was back up and they did that superbly. Dooley a super offload to Steve Linane and he made space for himself. And who was on the spot? None other than the legend himself, Peter Brady, and Curry were in. Curry stretched their lead when Williams went the open side and the Cheetahs hung off him, allowing the hooker to throw a brilliant cut-out pass to Glenn Messenger, and he found Dale Williams on his outside and the Bulldogs were barking. But Waratah weren't going to lie down, and you don't give Darren Slocky even the slightest hint of an intercept, as he will make you pay dearly. Slocky just took off, and even though Curry chased hard, they were no match for the speedster. However, despite that hiccup, Curry put the nail in the coffin, Linane back inside for Terry Bender, and the big front rower did the rest. And over the road at Rutherford today, the first day of the annual Kirkwood Cup Polocross tournament, and this year is probably the strongest on record, with internationals and state reps by the score competing. Maxville had a strong win over Bunnan in the first match and will play Maitland in tomorrow's final of the A grade. Corindai had a close shave with Hawkesbury 25-21 before bowing out to Maitland 14-13.
Places were being set for 200 expected at the opening. Established by the Police Citizens Youth Club and the Cessnock Youth Development Project in conjunction with the Hari Krishna Food for Life program, the centre will provide a safe hangout for young people. As well as games, entertainment and information, there'll be free vegetarian meals each Saturday and Sunday evening, courtesy of the Hari Krishnas.
Nobody should go hungry within a 10-kilometre radius of any of our temples, and that includes our farms. So our wish is simply to make sure that people get fed nicely.
Great.
Former Cronulla star John O'Connor and Arara's Aaron Gill weren't swapping family photos early on. It was more like TV ringside. When things settled down, Brenda Moran made a small break, looked back inside, and backing up was Shane Holton, who did well to score. And things in the second half really hotted up. Big Ian Sawyer busted the Arara defence out wide, and O'Connor loomed up on his outside. A despairing tackle halted O'Connor's progress for a moment, but he was still able to get up and score. A late tackle resulted in another fiery outburst, Sawyer copping a couple of beauties. Paul Gardner was able to play the ball forward, no markers, and he put the head down, and it was Woolgoolga who were in control. But Arara hit back, and Brad Hart was brilliant, scoring under the posts, and then through sheer strength somehow got a ball onto his centre, and they were in, but it wasn't enough, and Woolgoolga were home by 2 points. At the Jack Neal Oval Taree, the Southern Zone Rugby Grand Final between the Old Bar Clams and making their first appearance in the big one, Foster in the green and gold. Old Bar opened well, and nippy halfback Tom Burke touching down under the posts. The second half was excellent. Foster's backline swinging into action, Smith to Thompson onto Sales, and finally Steve Townsend crossed for the try. But Old Bar had too many guns, and fullback Todd Kennelwell broke through to give his team a 15-5 victory.
While it was a social gathering at Lismore's 10-pin bowling centre last night, many of the people there hope to compete in next year's national championships at Maroochydore. Businesses on the far north coast donated a range of prizes, which were raffled or given away. More than $3,000 was raised. The money will be put towards the accommodation and travel costs of those who take part in the national titles. It's estimated that more than 240 people from the region will take part in the event.
Brian Quinnen was electric in the opening minutes as he raced away to score on 3 occasions, this the first, and then fullback Mark Mulligan set up the flying centre and Lake Schneider were on an early roll. More punishment for the Lions as again Quinton sighted a gap bigger than the heads at Nobbies, and Quinton took full toll to race Lakes to an 18-0 lead after 10 minutes. Back came the Lions, Darren Ford under Dean Mikowski, back to Ford, and backing up was Simon Cook, who did the rest to score the try. Then sensation, as we stopped for a battery change, Walters allegedly went high and referee Williams signalled to the shed. From that, South edged closer just before the break. Crow on to Cook to Mikowski, and he sent a brilliant ball to Donaldson, and it was 20-12 at the break. And it got closer. Butler busted the Seagulls' defence, and Cook backed up. His pass a pure speculator, but on the spot was fullback Brad Guy, who dropped the ball onto the boot, and then won the race to touchdown to narrow the gap to 2. But then Lakes United steadied. Carter to Hubbard to Quinton, and he was in for number 4. And for Simon Cook, a shocker. His pass ending up in Gary Bray's hand, and he turned defence into attack. Backing up was Hubbard, and Lakes United were home to set up a meeting with the Rosellas. As was the case against Manly, the Knights were on the board in the first 3 minutes, and again it was Mark Glanville who was Johnny on the spot to get the 4 points. Entered King Wally, up went the bomb, and nobody wanted the ball, and it finally fell the Coast's way. Lewis again, this time to Cook, on to Martin, and all of a sudden an upset was on the cards. 12-4 at the break, and Lewis was inspirational in this solo effort to make it 20 points to 4. Stung into action, it was left to McCormick and Sargent to get the Knights back in the match. Then some brilliance from the Red and Blues. Godden superb all day, and he put Tony Herman away, and all of a sudden it was 20 points to 16. With 2 minutes remaining, Hagan lobbed a pass over to star Matthew Rodwell. Breaker was there in support, and the rangy centre had the legs to get to the line, and the Knights scrambled a point to stay in the hunt for the semi-finals. The tournament was the culmination of a series of regional events to find the best in the north. In the under-10s, Joanne Brown of Coffs Harbour and Matthew Howard from Warhope lost only 1 game apiece to record their wins. In the 12s, it was an all-Grafton affair. Kelly Blanche and Brad Hartley victorious. In the 16s, Michelle Watson of Lennox Head never dropped a game in winning the girls, while Mark Way of Lismore struggled before overcoming Ben Coates 6-4. Jamie McDonough of Foster proved too strong for Duncan Sheriff and the under-18 boys, and a big surprise for 2 14-year-olds from Lismore. Christy Tideswell and Mark Charlton won their respective singles finals 6-5 and were informed they had each won a fortnight scholarship to John Newcomb's T-Bar Tennis Ranch in Texas during July next year.
A recent decision by the New South Wales State Government to impose registration charges to heavy trucks over and above those recommended by a National Road Transport Commission makes this state the most expensive to register a truck in. The Commission settled on a national rego charge of $4,000 a year, but New South Wales has added another $3,000 on top of that in so-called safety and environmental charges.
I challenge what is an environmental and safety levy with the two things that the New South Wales government has seemed to have pulled out of the air to as a straight revenue grab after not getting the figure that they wanted from an independent commission appointed to set a national level for heavy truck registration fees. They agreed to the system. They've now decided that they've agreed to play the game and not take the umpire's decision when it was handed down.
Roads Minister Wal Murray claims a reduction in registrations would cost the state $75 million in road revenue. Mark Crosdale, a trucking editor of Truck and Bus, says drivers are fed up with being bulldozed and says there's little sympathy from other road users. He hopes to change attitudes, starting with the National Roads and Motorists Association.
I feel that heavy transport is a major road user. NRMA members are major road users. I think it's long overdue that the two groups had a bit of an understanding of each other's problems.
Sergeant Jim Glogly is the head of the Northern New South Wales Child Mistreatment Unit. It's based in Newcastle but covers the entire state from Sydney to the Queensland border. He says child abuse is on the increase.
There has been a steady increase. Certainly it's not going backwards. Our personnel are non-stop. And perhaps here at Newcastle we would get on the average of 25 matters to investigate each month.
And the increases are most severe in several specific communities.
Here at Newcastle, the Central Coast and probably Coffs Harbour area, there certainly is a high incidence.
On Wednesday, police will launch Operation Paradox as part of Child Protection Week. A phone-in will allow victims of abuse to report directly to police or welfare officers.
The victims will be considered at all times. If they wish to attend court or proceedings be instituted, they'll certainly look at that and give them advice about that.
While the official hotline won't operate until Wednesday, police have other lines available at all hours. In Newcastle and the Hunter, the number is 049 290 640. Gosford and Central Coast residents should call 043 235 448. At Coffs Harbour, the number is 066 512 942, and at Lismore, the number is 066 250 723. Tom Hilston, NBN News. This is the man police are seeking for an armed hold-up at the National Australia Bank in the Junction on Friday. The man entered the premises at about 2:30 p.m. and threatened staff with a long-barrelled pistol. He fled with a small quantity of cash and a white and red plastic shopping bag. Police are astonished that he made no attempt to conceal his identity.
There could very well be a number of people that know this person, and we'd ask them to take a good look at the photograph.
The gunman is described as 35 to 38 years of age, 175 centimetres tall with dark hair. He was wearing a dark blue jacket and jeans.